Hey you, and welcome. In this video, we will look at conflicts and gitignore for secret management. So let's dive right into it. First things first, what is a conflict? So I'm going to create a conflict right now and show you that firsthand. In order to create a conflict, I need to have two branches. So my main branch is there. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to create a whole new branch and call it branch A. So that's my branch A created. Next, I'll create another branch, call it branch B. Perfect. Now I have two branches. A conflict in GitHub would be that two branches making changes to the same file, maybe even the same line, and then those two branches try to merge together or merge into another branch right after another, and that could create conflicts. So let's see how that works. I'm going to go to branch A and open this in VS Code. I'll make change to console log here and say world. Save that. Go to GitHub desktop and make that updated index.js, and I'll commit that change and I'll publish that. Perfect. So that's number one. Now branch B, I'll open that in VS Code as well, and you see how it's changed to hello again because I've changed the branch. So this branch will say instead of world, it will be just earth. Save that. Go back to my GitHub desktop, updated index.js, commit, and publish. Perfect. So this should create a conflict for me on the GitHub. So if I go back to my Firefox, and you can see there's a few branches. So if I create a pull request at this point, I'll create a new pull request using branch A. It's able to merge, no conflicts just yet. I'm going to create this pull request, keep the message as is, and click on create pull request. Great. Now let's go back to pull request section, create another pull request using branch B, and create pull request, create pull request. Great. All right, looking good so far. Two branches, both of them able to merge, no conflicts just yet. Now watch what happens when I merge branch A, which I believe is this one, branch A, perfect. I can merge it into main right now, merge it, done, and I'll delete the branch, no more use for that anymore. And if I go back to pull request, go back to updated index, if I scroll down, I can see that there's now a conflict. Now there's two ways to resolve the conflict. One way would be to use the web UI for GitHub, where you can see there's a button called resolve conflicts. If I click on it, it will show me what a conflict is, and this is one way to do it. I, however, would pick the local way to do it because that way your branches don't get messed up. What I mean by that is if you make the changes here, eventually your local branch will be outdated, and that can create problems when you try to push new changes or pull any request, any update information. So that can create some problem. Chances are local would be better. So I'm not going to use this, but there is a way to do that on GitHub UI. I'm just not going to use that functionality. I'll go back to my GitHub desktop and go to main branch, and let's fetch origin, pull origin. Great. With that done, now let's switch over to branch B. And after switching over at the bottom, you can see there's an option, choose a branch to merge into branch B. So chances are you don't want to resolve conflicts on the main branch. That's the working branch. Everybody should just be working out of that, and there should be no conflicts there. So best way to do it is to resolve the conflicts on a separate branch, on a different branch outside of main. In this case, branch B. So I'll do that. I'll click on this and I'll say merge main into there, and it will say there will be one conflicted file when you want to merge. So I'll say create a merge commit. And now the resolution needs to happen. So I'll say open this in Visual Studio. And you can see this is a much nicer UI for me to work with. It's highlighted to say the current changes that you have on branch B are so on hello earth. And then the changes that are incoming from the other branch says hello world. Which one would you like to use? And at the top of this, you can see there's a few options for me to work with. I'll hide my file explorer. The options are accept current changes, that means hello earth goes in, or accept incoming changes, or accept both, that means both console logs can exist and you can just keep both of them. In this case, I'll work with incoming changes. So accept incoming change. Perfect. And save that file. If I go back to now GitHub desktop and I'll say continue merge, no conflicts remaining, make sure that message shows up, and I'll say commit merge. And once that is done, I can push that. Loading finishes. If I go back to my Firefox, refresh, and you can see that the pull request now has no more conflicts, and I can just merge it. After merging, I can delete. And if I go back to my code on the main branch, index.js, I get hello world. Great. So that's conflict resolution. Of course, these conflicts will get bigger and bigger and more complex as the files get bigger, as the project gets bigger. So each one will be different, but this is how we deal with conflicts on GitHub. Now, with that done, let's take a look at what gitignore does. So let me show you an example. If I go back to my VS Code with this project, right now I have a package.json and index.js. I haven't installed any dependencies. Let's say I wanted to work with another node module. So I'll install one. I'll use a command line for that. I have iterm open, but if you don't, just open your terminal. In my terminal, I will install a package. In this case, let's just work with the one that we installed before. Nope. And install. Great. With that installed, you would notice if I go back to my VS Code, there's node modules and a package lock JSON file that got generated for us. Usually node modules, this folder will get huge and you don't want to put it all on GitHub. GitHub has a limit of how big your files can get, and eventually you're going to run into those limits. Those limits are very huge though. Your code has to be on enterprise level. You're probably putting libraries on, so don't worry about hitting that limit. But with node modules, you have to really worry about that because those get pretty big. You'll be using a lot more packages in the future projects. So we need to ignore this file or this folder. And in order to do that, we can create a new file and name it .gitignore. Remember to put the dot in the beginning, otherwise it won't recognize it. Gitignore. This wording has to be exactly as is. So the file name cannot be anything else. It has to be .gitignore. Press enter. In this file, we can just type node_modules. It's a new line delimited file. So as more files pop up, let's say you have another file called .env where you will create secrets. You're going to write some secrets about the project. And this file should not go to GitHub either because it's secret. So .env, so on and so forth. You can just keep adding more files into this list. And if I press save, notice what happens to node modules. It will change color. Same thing with .env. If I save it, there we go. Node modules and env both grayed out. Green files or just regular text files are files in your project that are currently part of the Git repo, whereas env or node module, they're not part of Git repo. They're still part of your project, but they're local only. When you push changes, the changes don't go to those files, or those files don't even exist on GitHub. That's what gitignore would do for us. So I'll just go ahead and go to my GitHub desktop and make sure the changes are coming in fine. At this point, I'm going to make sure there's no .env file changes being reported and node modules, which is correct. Only package lock got changed, package JSON got changed, and gitignore got added. So I'll just say gitignore added and commit this. Oh, I'm in branch B. Ooh, I should go back to main. Yeah, let's go back to main, switch branch, leave my changes in branch B, bring my changes, switch branch, and I'll fetch origin, pull origin. Yes, great. And now I can gitignore. So you can see how you can make mistakes being on a different branch when you have many branches. Just keep in mind before you start making changes, always check your branch. I make this mistake all the time. So commit change, push origin. Perfect. So if I now go to github.com, look at my code, in the main branch, gitignore is there, node modules is not there, and .env is not there. So whenever somebody wants to work with this project, they have to clone the repo and then run npm install to install the node modules. That's usually the practice everybody follows. All right, I'll see you all in the next video.